In the tapestry of life, where every thread holds a story, America in black and white emerges as a haven for the voices echoing through the heart of our communities. In this podcast, we wade through the rivers of our collective experiences, celebrating the vibrant hues of change brought forth by the whispers of hope and the roars of action. It's more than just a conversation. It's a journey into the heart of our society, illuminated by the light of those daring to dream and do. Join us, and let your voice be the melody that guides us toward a dawn where every color finds its place in the masterpiece of our shared destiny. Together, let's paint a future brimming with the positives that dwell in our minds and the actions that shape our world.
There is a question that has haunted American civic life since the founding of this republic. A question we dress up in the language of policy and budget cycles and institutional priorities, but which, at its core, is a moral question of the most fundamental kind. Who gets in? Who gets access to education, to training, to opportunity, to the institutions that make upward mobility not merely possible, but plausible? Who gets a door open for them, and who is handed a locked gate and told to find their own way around? The answers to those questions have never been random. They have been architectural. They've been built into zoning maps and school funding formulas, into admissions criteria and hiring practices, into the very geography of cities like New York, where a 10-minute subway ride can be the distance between two entirely different Americas. And nowhere is that architectural inequity more visible, more documented, and more defiant in its refusal to be defeated than in the borough of the Bronx. The Bronx is one of the most misunderstood places in America. For decades, it has been shorthand for urban failure, the burning buildings of the 70s, the poverty statistics, the crime narratives that a certain kind of journalism never tired of repeating. But the Bronx is also the birthplace of hip hop, one of the most transformative cultural movements in human history. It is home to communities of extraordinary resilience, of immigrant strivers, and generational New Yorkers who have built beauty and meaning and family and faith in the face of chronic disinvestment. It is a borough where educational opportunity is not a given, where it has to be fought for, lobbied for, built institution by institution, program by program, student by student, and that fight, that daily, unglamorous, consequential fight, is what I want to talk about tonight. Because nestled in that borough, doing work that most people who live outside of it have never heard of, is an institution that represents one of the most important and least celebrated models of educational access in the entire county. The SUNY Bronx Educational Opportunity Center. Educational Opportunity Centers, EOCs, exist to do the work that the traditional higher educational pipeline was never designed to do. They serve adults who need a second start. They serve people for whom college was never an option the first time around. They provide workforce training, high school equivalency preparation, allied health education, computer skills, instruction, college transition support, and the kind of holistic, human-centered guidance that bureaucratic institutions so rarely manage to provide. They are, in the truest sense, the bridge between the America that exists and the America that is promised, and the bridge is built every single day by people who never stop believing that the crossing is worth it. I want to talk tonight about second chances, because second chances are not simply feel-good stories. They are a moral and civic necessity, the willingness to create genuine pathways for people who have been incarcerated, who have been pushed out of the workforce, who have been written off by every institution that was supposed to serve them. That willingness is one of the most radical and necessary acts of community leadership available to us. It is also one of the most economically rational. Every person who re-enters the workforce with skills and credentials with institutional support is a person contributing to a tax base, raising a family, modeling possibility for the next generation. We have always known this. The question has never been whether second chances are wise. The question has always been whether we have the moral courage to build the infrastructure that makes them real. The tradition I draw onto tonight is long and luminous. Mary McLeod Bethune found a school with $1.50 and a dream because she understood that education was the architecture of freedom. Thurgood Marshall argued before the Supreme Court that separate was not equal because he understood that access to knowledge is a constitutional right. The founders of our historically Black colleges and universities built institutions from nothing because they understood that liberation without institutionalization is temporary, and that the community that controls its own educational apparatus controls its own future. That tradition of Black educators and administrators who have built access from the inside, who have worked within and against and around systems that were not designed for the people they were committed to serve, is the tradition that tonight's guests carry forward. Dr. Ronnie Hector is the executive director of the SUNY Bronx Educational Opportunity Center and the president of the Association of Educational Opportunity Center Directors. He has spent 35 years in community-based workforce development, higher education administration, allied health training, and DEI work, with a particular focus on the empowerment of males who have been systematically excluded from the pathways that institutions are supposed to provide. He has led prison reentry initiatives, mentored rising administrators across the SUNY system, and collected awards from the city and state of New York that affirm what his community already knew. That is, man is building something important, something durable, something that will outlast any one administration's priorities or any one budget cycle's constraints. Tonight we sit with Dr. Ronnie Hector and we ask the question that matters. What does it look like to spend a career building doors for people who were never given a key? What has 35 years of his work taught him about resilience, about institutions, about the people the system tried to leave behind? And what does he see when he looks at the Bronx? Not through the lens of its deficits, but through the lens of its extraordinary undefeated potential. I'm your host, Charles Zachary King, and you are watching America in Black and White. And tonight, we go deep. Let's welcome to the show, Dr. Ronnie Hector. Hello, sir.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm doing well. It's a rainy day in New York City, and I'm enjoying listening to the rain. It reminds me of back in the Caribbean, just listening to the rain fall. So I'm in good spirits.
Wow. Well, that's a good thing, and we're glad to have you here. And before we jump into the show, is there anything you'd like to say to the audience?
Sure. If everyone attending, want to have a lively discussion, just really want to talk about what we know is possible. And when we, through our history, we know that we have fought the impossible and have created possible out of the impossible. So we continue that fight. And these conversations with Dr. King really helps us to really navigate, understand, think critically about our neighborhood, our communities, and where we want to go. And I think that is really, really important. These are important conversations for us to have as we build and grow and develop.
Well, thank you so very kindly. And as we get into the show, I want to thank each and every individual that's here, that's watching us tonight. Also, I want to thank those that are always here each and every show. I appreciate your support. And please, as you guys, if you've got any questions or comments, please put them in the chat. Dr. Hector, the way I start each and every show is I like to start where I like to give our audience the opportunity to learn about our guests, learn some things about you, and then we'll get into all these wonderful things that you are doing. So I want to start with your roots, your life story, and the making of Dr. Hector. Take us back to the beginning, the community, the household, the world you grew up in. What was the landscape of your childhood, and what did it teach you early on about who gets opportunity and who has to fight for it?
Sure, definitely. Uh, I grew up in a pretty large town in Trinidad and Tobago. Come from a strong family that is very culturally diverse, from Venezuela to Spain to France, the African roots and Native American roots as well. So we were always taught life through stories, which is part of our African tradition. And so I grew up with a grandmother who was in charge of the household. She ran everything. Nothing moved without her say so. And so we had to really live up to that concept of respect for elders, knowing who you are, living your purpose, finding purpose, defining purpose, and changing courses at times. She was the person that you would go to ask any questions, and that is one thing I really appreciate about my ability growing up in that household. We also had. Am I getting some feedback, Dr. K?
I don't hear any feedback.
Okay. So we also had a church since 1952, and so my grandmother was very, very spiritual in her view of the world, and kindness and love and respect, and so we all grew up with those fundamental aspects of who we are. We grew up on the beach, so I love to swim. And my cousins grew up in the forest, so we loved the rivers. And so from there, education was a key. So my grandmother never went to school. My mother had formal education in terms, but not higher education. And so it was my grandmother's dream for all of us to go to college. And so in my family, we have less than a handful who does not have a college degree, because she was very, very big on learning so that we could be able to have our voices heard in the world, so that we could become experts in our fields. And so growing up in that household, growing up as a track runner, running for Trinidad and Tobago, that was a big piece of it as well, learning discipline, learning how to be traveling, understanding different cultures, being able to plan out a race and those kind of things. And so growing up in that household really gave us, myself and the rest of my family, an opportunity to learn a lot, grow a lot, develop a lot. And so that brought me here to the shores of the United States. And, going to school at Medgar College, and if folks know Medgar College is considered a Black college, and because it's very, very empowering in that way. And we had great mentors at Medgar College. The president at the time was Dr. Jackson, Edison O. Jackson, and he was the person who gave us that foundation for how we deal with males and how we build males and how we grow males into a powerhouse in our communities. And so he led that fight for us as teenagers, and he never stopped. And so we learned a lot of those from him, and our professors as well. They came from diverse backgrounds throughout the Caribbean diaspora, throughout the Americas. And we learned a lot from them in terms of who we were as a people, who we were as a person, and how powerful our voices are. And so that is sort of really what shaped my worldview and my understanding of the world, because I had great people along the way to help me, to my grandmother, the president, President Jackson, and others who were there to really sort of really help shape me as well. My mother traveled, but my mother is one of the greatest, lovingest person ever in the world. And, I had to sort of really grow up around a lot of my male relatives. My father died when I was 4. And so my mom had to really struggle through the process. But we were a very close extended family. So that gave some cover for us to grow up in an environment that nurtured us in a way that allows us to speak our truth to the world. And so that is sort of really what shaped me, Dr. King. And I think it was a good foundation on which to build.
So your grandmother is among the 3 most significant influences in your life and career. Tell us about her, not her resume, but her spirit. What did she give you that no degree program ever could?
My grandmother would always say, "Get it done." That was her favorite line. And so you could give her all the reasons to not get it done, and she'd just look at you and say, "Get it done." Because she knew what you could achieve, and before you knew what you could achieve. And so and she would always say also that no lasts forever. So even as you go into a storm, a rough time, a challenging time, it does not last forever, and you got to stay the course. You got to be focused. And I think that sort of remind me of Dr. King and all the other freedom fighters staying the course, because it could get rough and it could get tough, but you have to stay the course, because at the end of the day, you have a purpose and you want to achieve that purpose. So she definitely gave me those rebellious aspects of myself come from my grandmother.
Mm-hmm. So when you look at the work you do today, opening doors for people the system has closed out, how much of that impulse traces directly back to what you watched her do for your family and community?
Yes, fight. Every day was a fight. Every day, my grandmother would say, "You may lose a fight, but you gotta leave some marks behind." So, even if it's the biggest bully, you leave a mark behind, they would know that you're not afraid to fight. So I bring that tenacity and drive and fight and rigor to my work in the Bronx, because I'm fighting every day for lives. Every life is precious in the Bronx. And so every day we fight for the lives of our brothers and sisters who have been underserved for decades. And so every effort that I put into increasing enrollment, bringing on new programs, hiring folks to do the work, creating partnerships in the community, working with our elected officials, it's those kind of building blocks that allow me to be able to get up every morning, come to work with a drive and vigor to ensure that the next person who walks in that door, that barrier is going to be broken for them.
So can you tell us, besides your grandmother's influence, what was the other part of your motivation that put you, gave you the strength to want to go and create these opportunities and help people in the communities from the educational perspective?
Sure. So in college, I wasn't too sure about what I wanted to do. So, I started doing different things at different times. I was in RN programs at one point, computer programs at another. And then I started working for the Dean of Liberal Arts and Education at Medgar College, Dr. Deborah Shani, and she was such a unique person as an Irish female who it was, being grown up in that house, it was tough for females at that time. And her desire for education really struck me. And the stories that she told me about her work of getting into education and working in special education in underserved communities was a really, really big thing for me. And so I took that to heart, and I sort of really started focusing more on education, public administration, public service. By nature, I am a service person. That's what I do. I want to serve. I want to make sure that if I serve you, you should take that and serve someone else. And so when you do that, everybody eats. And so that's really, really critical for me as academic, learning from her. I also served as assistant to the dean for liberal arts and education. So I got to see the whole scope of how that School of Education worked, and worked with them, worked with the campus in different areas. And so I was able to learn so much about academics and how to best serve folks who are struggling through, academic endeavors. And I would always tell people a story. I had a friend that we grew up with in school as a youngster, and we were in elementary school at the time. And he was not, at that time, his academics was challenging for him. And so what happens with folks who if they're not showing that progression, they go to trade schools in Trinidad. And so he went to trade school, and people would talk about him and say he couldn't spell simple words and things like that. And years later, I saw him travel. I went to Trinidad. I saw him traveling in public transportation, and I said, "Hey guys, how you doing?" Blah blah blah. I said, "What are you doing now?" And he said, "I'm an engineer." And I never forgot, because his path started later, but his path was always his path. And so that is one of the things that I certainly bring. That yes, you may have committed crimes when in prison. You may have not take your academics seriously. So now you're in that space where you need to grow and develop now in the academics, or training or workforce development, whatever it is. But that's okay. We're here to support you. We're here to give you the tools you need to make a difference in your life. And what we do at Bronx EOC is generational. We're not only focused on the individual that we're working with, but we know that if we get it right, the next generation is going to benefit from it.
Oh yes, most definitely. What was the moment, the specific visceral moment, when you realized that education was not merely something you were pursuing for yourself, but something you were called to build for others?
Yes, definitely. Good question. I had great mentors, and so I wanted to be a good mentor for folks. I wanted to learn the business of education. I wanted to learn the science of education, and I wanted to be able to take that knowledge and impart that into others. And so at that point in time, my family always jokes that I've never not been in school. At some point or form, I find something else to do. So I've always been in school, always taking up another degree, taking up another certification, because I want to learn and grow. And as a lifelong learner, I want to be able to speak intelligently about what I'm talking about, the topic that I'm on, or just in general, just be a person that is able to fit into spaces and bring a unique view to the conversation, fill in blind spots where there may be blind spots, because folks come from different experiences. And so for me, education from my grandmother's side, and then for me personally, just really wanting to be that person, to have that voice, to share my voice, and to be that voice in the room, and to get into the room, right? And to build my seat if I have to, just to be at the table. And so those kind of things is what drives me in terms of the academics, and finding a space where I could support others to build their academic workforce development, career development into a space where they feel comfortable, and that their family, they feel that change is coming. because it's one thing to one change, is another thing to actually feel that it's coming, actually experience the change, so that you're able to say, you know what, yesterday I was here, today I'm here, tomorrow I'm going to be over there. And so giving them that sense of strength and determination is part of that as well.
Well, as a Black man in America who has earned a bachelor's degree, 2 master's degrees, and a doctorate, what did the pursuit of those credentials actually cost you emotionally, financially, personally, and what did it mean to earn each one?
Yes, yes. Personally, learning academics is very, I love it. I just really enjoy learning the business, the administrative side, the business side, the academic side of it. I was blessed where the only thing I had to pay for was my uh, doctorate degree. So we had, in college, I worked for the college, so we got our tuition paid, and then my master's degrees, they were paid for my grant programs, and things like that. So, but I think that sort of really helped me to keep pushing, keep achieving, because I had the opportunity, the financial opportunity to do so. And that's one of the things that people talk about education and the cost of education and how high the cost of education is. And so it shows me that if somebody gives you the opportunity in terms of the finances and be able to provide those finances for you, people will go to college. And so that's sort of the challenges that I know that we have to address, is that high cost of college and providing opportunity for folks to go to college that would allow them not to come up with that expense.
So, can you tell? Because now, for one thing, I got to say that the things that you have actually accomplished, I think, are really, really wonderful. And I mean, they're really, they stand out because it shows the acceleration and the growth in you as the individual that you are. Can you tell us that in that whole entire process and being part of that 5% of Black educators, Black male educators in America, and to be accomplished and to get the results that you get, what does that mean to you?
When I defended my dissertation, the first thing I did was give praise, and then I thought about my grandmother, and I wish that she was here to see all the hard work that she has done. I called my mom right away, told her about it. I am the first Black male in my family to have a doctorate degree. We have females in our family that have doctorate degrees, MDs or PhDs. And so being the first male, I always want to show that pathway for my male cousins and nieces and nephews. And so that is something that we take great pride in our family. If we gather together, as I said, the majority of us have degrees. And so it's important for us to reduce that stigma that to the history of the United States, that we couldn't learn, which is totally false, because we knew how to plant and we knew how to grow and what season to grow and how to till the soil. So all those things are education in itself. And so just to sort of really continue the fight that we've always had in this country, that we are worthy of the respect, that we are inventors and creators and teachers, and really impact this country and the world in the things that we do in academics or just in our natural learning experiences. And so I think that is what is really pushing me to be better and grow more. Is my grandmother's in my mind, my family structures in my mind, and building generational structure is something that I want for our family. So if we build this academically, we know that we're going to get financial growth and everything out of it, and that sets up the next generation. So they could grow and become more economically sound, upward mobility for them. And so that's why I think education is generational. If the little things that we do as a generation really impacts the generation to come. And we know the negative numbers. We've heard the negative numbers. if you went to jail, if you live in this zip code, but we could change that. The zip code has never stopped us from and being creative and being educated. It has never stopped us, right? So we have to let people know that it doesn't matter what zip code you're in. It doesn't matter. You still have that drive, that tenacity, that ability to grow and develop and think critically about life and invent and create. And so that is something that I think it's really. And I know I would be remiss if I didn't mention our board president from the Bronx, Vanessa L. Gibson, who always says that it does not determine your destiny. That is one of the things she says all the time. And that is something that I take to heart and focus on as well.
Let's transition over to your work as Assistant Associate Director, Years and Educational Leadership Journey. You've held an extraordinary range of roles across your career. Affirmative Action Officer, Human Resources Specialist, Assistant to the Dean of Liberal Arts and Education, Online Administrator, Adjunct Professor, Associate Director. Looking back, which of those early roles taught you the most about how institutions actually work versus how they claim to work?
Yes. This assistant to the Dean of Liberal Arts and Education, I think, gave me a great opportunity to learn because I had a great supervisor and mentor. She would teach me the business and she would talk to me about how to look at things. Served also on President Clinton Committee on Education. And so she would always fill me in of what's going on, how to build inclusive learning environment, creating learning communities where people grow and learn together and feed off each other. And so that experience working in that space really gave me a good eye for education, how education could be used if it's used in the right way to build a strong academic base in our community. In college at Medgar College, I served president of public administration and political science, and so it was the most powerful club on campus. And so we had opportunities from, for example, we brought the first Aborigine to be elected to government from Australia he came to the UN. The UN called and asked if we wanted to have him host, because they go around making money doing hosting and doing different things. So we were able to bring that person to Medgar College to talk about his experience being the first Aborigine in elected office in Australia. Michael Lapsley from South Africa, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. He came to UN and we brought him in to talk about his experience. And Father Lapsley also, they tried to assassinate him at one point. So they blew his hands off and things like that. And so, but he kept the fight. So those kind of things, when I see him still fighting, still struggling, still making a difference, that is what I want to be. And so I learned a lot in that role of assistant to the dean, and I learned a lot from our president. Our president, I don't know what he saw in me, but he saw it, and he would say, I need you to go to this meeting to represent me. And the first time he asked his secretary to ask me to go represent him at an event, I was shocked by it because I probably was maybe 2021, and I was shocked by it. But he saw the ability for me to go in and do that and represent him the way he needed to be represented. And so I think those kind of environments nurture positivity, and nurture the leaders of this great country and this world.
I've got two interesting comments here in the chat I'm going to put on the screen, and I want you to respond if you would, please. The first one is this. It says, structure, that's the key. The second one is, I put this on the screen there. He says, still exists, school to prison pipeline.
Yes, Structure, I'll take the structure. Structure is definitely key. My structure came from my athletics, being disciplined in a lot of different sports, being able to be disciplined in my household and my academics and my schoolwork. And I would say say a little bit about structure in this way. My first full year, I was very ill, and so I was home for a long time, learning at home and things like that. And even when I went to school, I would always get, sometimes a year. And so when I really had a full year of school, I could not compete with the other kids. I knew a lot, but I couldn't compete because they had the structure, and I didn't have the structure at that time. And my goal within a year or two to be one in those classes, in terms of exams. Second places, once in a while firsts, but I think those ability to see allows you to make informed and plant your feet on solid ground. And the prison, that is just another way of controlling the wealth of knowledge that we have in our communities. You would go to
Dr. Hector, are you still there? You froze up and now we can't hear you at all. Dr. Hector? Okay, looks like we have lost Dr. Hector. Uh, see if we can get him back. Give me 1 second, y'all. Let me see if I can get Dr. Hector back. If not, we may have to close the show. Ladies and gentlemen, don't look like we're going to be able to get Dr. Hector back on. So I think we're going to have to try and get him back on another day. I apologize for the technical difficulties, but we're just going to go ahead and just end the show at this point. I thank you guys for being here, and you guys have a great evening, and we'll see you tomorrow for another.